And welcome back to Sin and Finn, the Dugout Decision Show.
Yes, and what a year it was for the Toronto Blue Jays and its fans. Boy, oh boy, the Jays made it to the World Series, and so much happened. Was it the most conventional way? Absolutely not. And we're going to break down every piece of this here.
Absolutely. Starting all the way back in January, we're going to take a look at what this team did last offseason and seeing how it played out through the year. Looking back at last December, actually, going into January, the first move the Jays made was trading for Andres Jimenez. This is a guy that they brought over for primarily defense. He was great at second base defensively, had an injury-plagued season, and again, we shipped out Spencer Horwitz. Spencer Horwitz was a great hitter for us in 2024. Thought there was some potential there. He's shipped out. Andres Jimenez comes in. 101 games played, has a 210 batting average. Granted, some big playoff moments, but we'd like to see a little more from Andres Jimenez going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And the projections for next year are huge. I mean, right now he's slotted in as our shortstop. And Andres Jimenez is a great defender, and shortstop is a position where you can maximize the value defensively. And it's going to be so fun to watch to see a full year of Andres Jimenez at shortstop. My oh my, that's going to be something to see. But also in this trade was Nick Sandlin. Nick Sandlin is a reliever that the Blue Jays liked a lot and have kind of different prototypes of him year after year. This coming year, they brought in Tyler Rogers, who was kind of the same thing, a submarine kind of guy. Nick Sandlin was little higher slot than Tyler Rogers, quite a bit higher actually. But he's similar to that Simber, Tyler Rogers kind of pitcher that the Blue Jays like a lot. That bridge reliever to get them from, say, a Braden Fisher to Jeff Hoffman. And guys who can throw a lot of innings. And sadly, Nick Sandlin couldn't do that. He had a great April. He had his moments in extra innings against the Red Sox and all those kind of things. But he couldn't stay healthy. And the same goes for Andres Jimenez with his ankle and quad injury. He hasn't been an injured guy for the bulk of his career. 101 games played is not a lot at all. And also he had a career low 210 batting average. And a lot of that is because he wasn't healthy. I think it was in September, and he's like, I can feel my legs again. I can feel like I can swing, and he started to swing it well. I mean, that Mariners series, he had 2 home runs and 2 huge home runs when the bats looked quiet. And I think a healthy Andres Jimenez is key for the Blue Jays next year.
Yeah, he was a great piece. Again, the overall playoff numbers weren't great for Jimenez,
Yeah.
but if he doesn't hit those home runs, game 3 and 4 in the ALCS, do they beat the Mariners? I mean, I don't know. And then we go into early January. I believe this was January 10th was the date. Jordan Romano's finally gone. They DFA'd him. They had enough. They didn't like his elbow. And who do they replace as the closer? They bring in Jeff Hoffman, who was coming off a great year with Philly, an all-star year with Philly in 2024, a couple of good years actually with Philly. And he's brought in for 3 years and $33 million. And it's really tough to sort of put into words the season that Jeff Hoffman had. He had such a good April. He starts to struggle in May, has a really bad May, and he's just kind of wishy-washy the whole year. He had some good outings, some not so great outings. He'll look good for a stretch for about a week or two, and then I think he blew like 8 saves throughout the year. Finished with 33. He could have been a 40-save guy if he's not blowing those games. Granted, let's say the playoff numbers were very good up until Game 7. We'll try and forget about that home run for now, but it's interesting because we were looking again at some of the top closers this offseason. Ross Atkins said, look, he's not married to that closer role, so maybe do we look at someone else to be a closer? No one's really available on the market now, so hopefully Jeff Hoffman has a good consistent season next year.
Yeah, it certainly looks like Jeff Hoffman's going to come back and be the closer in 2026. And we were talking to our buddy Sam Green, and he talked about the struggle it was for Jeff Hoffman to just keep that velocity throughout the year. And we've seen this with Jordan Romano, just inconsistent velocity, and also Nate Pearson as a guy who pitched out of the bullpen, and some nights he would strike out the side, and the other night he would give up a 5 spot. And just having consistent velocity throughout the year. And this was his first year as a closer, really a full-time closer with the Phillies. He was a high-leverage setup man to Carlos Estevez, I think it was the year before. So it was his first year as a closer, and boy, he's a cool reliever. He's really fun to watch when he's clicking. He's got three really good pitches: his fastball, slider, and his splitter. And April was one of the best closer months I've ever seen. I believe it was under a 1 ERA, which is
Wow.
amazing. And also the way he was doing it, he was coming in extra innings, striking out the side, blowing kisses to the Orioles dugout. Like this was a dominant Jeff Hoffman that won the Blue Jays a lot of games in April, and then started to tick down. The stuff I mentioned, the velocity. Don't know if there was any health issues there, but I'm excited to see what he can do in 2026 because he can be a really effective reliever. And I believe Johnny on Game 14 podcast was talking about just the mental aspect of Jeff Hoffman taking the weight of the Game 7 World Series loss, which is,
Yeah.
boy, that's got to be straining your mind for a long time. And you're training all off season. That's all you can think about. So hopefully
Yeah.
Jeff Hoffman can put that behind him and have a great 2026.
I don't think he's really the reason that they lost. Obviously, he
Yeah.
gives up the
Oh yeah.
game-winning home run, but he was great throughout the playoffs, right? And you have one little blip, and then it seemed like you're the reason that they lost. So hopefully he comes back strong and even more confident next year. That was the first big move of the offseason. Jimenez was a big move. Granted, he had a good year back in, I think it was 2022. Hopefully he recaptures that. But Hoffman really was the big first signing of the offseason. And then I believe it was 7 days later, on the 17th of January, the Jays trade for Miles Straw from the Guardians. And for those who don't know, the reason that they brought over Miles Straw was to get an extra $2 million in international bonus signing money to sign a Japanese star. This was not Shohei Ohtani. They missed out on him. This was not Yoshinobu Yamamoto. This was Roki Sasaki. And what do you know? Later that night, the same day, January 17th, on Instagram, Roki Sasaki posts on his own Instagram that he's signing with the Dodgers. And the Dodgers get all three Japanese superstars. So we end up with Miles Straw. And what do you know? By the end of the year, we got a Miles Straw versus Roki Sasaki at bat. Didn't go great for Miles Straw. Sasaki was pumping 100 miles an hour, and Straw just couldn't catch up to it. But Straw was okay. He was kind of, I think back to Kevin Kiermaier, he was kind of a similar piece to that. Great defensively, right? Had a great, I believe it was a two-homer game when Rowdy Tellez actually pitched for the Rangers in August. So he had his moments. Is he really going to get the playing time in 2026? I don't know, but I think he was a good depth piece for the Jays in 2025.
Man, I was sick when Sasaki signed with the Dodgers. I really was. I thought this was our chance. I mean, it was
Yeah.
that morning where the Padres are out of the race, and it's between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays
Yep.
once again. And I'm in class, and I see that we traded Miles Straw for international bonus money. And I'm like, oh, it's got to happen. Ross isn't making this move unless he knows Sasaki's coming, and they're just freeing up money. Called my dad and everything, and then later that night, just in shambles because this next phenom, Roki Sasaki, is going to the Dodgers on a crazy deal. Like the contract
Yeah.
was so small, which was the big perk of it. You didn't have to pay much at all to get such a high prospect. I think like when Japanese players come over, they're on the prospect rankings. And I think Roki Sasaki was in the top 10, and you just acquired
Oof.
a guy for like what, like very, like it would have been like $7 million, I think.
Yeah.
So a very small amount of money to get such a weapon, and they missed out on him. And if you look at Miles Straw's stats this year, okay, not the prettiest. I mean, the WAR was pretty good. His defensive and base running value certainly was there, and the bat wasn't awful. Like it wasn't unusable. It was serviceable, but a lot goes beyond the numbers. This was a guy who contributed greatly to the Blue Jays' clubhouse, and that was a huge reason for the Blue Jays' success. Like a lot of
Yeah.
guys credit the chemistry to Miles Straw, to Ernie Clement, to Davis Schneider. Those guys who, if you look at their baseball reference, if you look at their fan graphs, okay, it's not the prettiest. Their savant has a lot of blue on it, okay, but their personality lights up the clubhouse, and that was a big reason for the Blue Jays' success, and a lot of that can be credited to Miles Straw.
Yeah, there were a lot of characters like them, right? There was Miles Straw, there was an Ernie Clement, and Nathan Lucas. That was a big reason. We talked about this a lot. Big reason why they were so successful. But really, the key offseason move, which proved to be arguably one of the worst in 2025, was getting their power stick. Power was a struggle in 2024. The Jays were horrible. The power numbers were just not there, aside from pretty much Vlad in 2024. So what do? On January 20th? They get their guy, Anthony Santander, who granted hit 44 home runs with the Orioles in 2024. I don't know that he's a 44 homer guy if he's ever going to reach those heights again. Do we see him get back to maybe 30 home runs next year? That would be nice if he just stays healthy. He, I believe it was by the end of May, goes down with a shoulder injury. He was horrible when he did play. Had one great moment, we will say, against the Red Sox, end of April, big home run that won the Jays a game. Aside from that, the guy didn't really do anything. So I think, honestly, we forget about Santander sometimes when we're talking about getting Tucker, getting Bo. So if Santander comes back next year, he can easily put up 30 home runs. We don't want to see him in the outfield, granted, but that's a good power stick, and he's a switch hitting guy. So hopefully he puts up better than a negative .9 WAR and a 175 batting average next year.
Yeah, definitely a disappointing 2025 season for Anthony Santander and the Blue Jays when it comes to that deal. They brought him back late in the season after his 3 month shoulder injury, hoping he could be a playoff hero, hoping that he would deliver a big moment. And we believed it. We thought that moment was coming. And I
Yep.
mean, it was late in the season against the Rays, I believe. He hit what would have been a grand slam just foul. And we thought that was the moment. But it wasn't. Thought it was coming. And then he got injured once again. And that ended his season. And man, I look at Fangraphs and it says that they project 28 home runs in 2026. And he had 6 home runs last year and a negative .9 WAR. His WAR is never going to look pretty because of his base running and defensive value. But if he can hit 28 home runs in 2026, this is a huge asset for the Toronto Blue Jays. A guy who could be in left field. And Nathan Lucas didn't have a whole lot of pop, 10, 11 home runs. Was a great piece for the Toronto Blue Jays. Will he be the same next year? Unlikely, but I think Anthony Santander really has potential to hit close to 30 home runs, maybe even 30 home runs. I remember when he signed, and he was at his locker in Dunedin, and he was doing a little intro video on the Blue Jays social media. He's like, "I'm Anthony Santander. I hit 30 home runs." Well, Anthony, you hit 6 last year. It's time for you to tick it up a little bit, and I hope he does. I think this is a good deal by Ross. A lot of people are flaming the deal. I think he's making $6 million against the cap next year. And deferrals are awesome. I love deferrals. But if he can contribute and be a piece, that would be huge. And we just talked about the leadership value. Boy, that Baltimore Orioles offense and clubhouse really missed Anthony Santander. I saw countless reports saying they need a leader in there, and their leader just left in Santander. And Anthony Santander could be that in 2026. We'll see. It was definitely a disappointing 2025. I remember when he had his switch hitting bobblehead. I saw on Twitter that he didn't even pick up a bat in the bobblehead because the bat was still on the ground. I was like, that's hilarious because he didn't pick up a bat for 2 months. But if he can pick up a bat and start swinging it hard and hit close at 28, 30 home runs, that would be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And he signed for, I think it was 5 years he signed for. So, okay, he had a bad first year. If we get a solid next 4 or even next 3 out of him, I think we'll take that in the long run. It turns out we didn't really even need him in 2025, right? Look how far we got. So if we can get that production from him, maybe that puts us over the edge. But he's the big signature move in January. And then we go into February, right before spring training starting. And who do we bring in? Mr. Unk, the 41-year-old Max Scherzer signs on a 1-year, $15 million deal. And this is another guy it's really hard to classify his 2025 season. He comes in, has his first start against the Orioles, I think gives up a home run. I don't even know if he gets through the first inning, and immediately his thumb is flaring up, and he's out until end of June. Comes back, he's solid down the stretch, but gets into late September. Let's not even talk about that Royal start. I mean, I don't even know how many runs the guy gave up. Was it 8? Was it 10? Was it 50? I don't know. The guy was horrible. He takes that break, though, has a long stretch, is able to heal up, comes back in the ALCS, what do you know, has a relatively decent outing, and he's the guy on the mound for Game 7. So an interesting season that they got out of Max Scherzer. Talk about leadership, talk about presence. He's that guy. I mean, he has the most experience of anyone in the league, honestly. So he served his purpose for a year, but I don't think we'll see him back next year.
Yeah, I tend to agree myself, and I think it was a resounding success for the Toronto Blue Jays. This was everything they wanted when they signed Max Scherzer. They wanted him for the playoffs when they got there. And
Yeah.
boy, did he look good in the playoffs. We won't talk about August, won't talk about September. He looked putrid. I mean, his curveball was hit very hard, and then
Oof.
comes back in the playoffs. That was his worst pitch in October, when in August and September. Comes back in October, it's his best pitch. I mean, it was magical stuff. Him yelling at John Schneider, all this stuff, man. The leadership aspect is huge once again. And will he be back in 2026? I highly doubt it. I just think the 10 years over. Don't pull the Kevin Kiermaier thing where you bring him back for another year because he was solid his first year. Just cut ties with him now. He was a great Blue Jay. And was he great all the way through? No. But his impact on the 2025 Blue Jays was critical. And a $15 million deal to be a back end rotation guy. Yeah, he's not just back end rotation guy. It's Max Scherzer. Like this guy was so fun to watch. I went to his debut. Was it the Shane Bieber debut? Was it lights out? No, I was seeing Jacob Barnes and Dick Lovelady in the fourth and fifth inning. It was horrendous. I go
Wow.
into the stands and all the workers are saying Max Scherzer's done for the year. I'm like that can't even be real. That the MRIs came back like 3 innings after
Oof.
he got injured, but they were wrong. He had a great tenure, and I think it's time as well. And the Blue Jays also made a few little moves, and Ryan Yarborough, but they didn't add him before the season, and then went to the Yankees and had a solid season. And then Jacob Barnes, Dick Lovelady, Amir Garrett, a bunch of dudes were signed and contributed in spring training, but didn't have a positive effect on the 2025 Blue
No.
Jays regular season.
No, and how about the legend? Shout out Buck Martinez, who said in spring training, I think it was after Max Scherzer's first start in spring training, "Wow, this guy looks like he's in World Series form." He says that line, and I mean, he was kind of right. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Scherzer was he was good. He went into Game 7 and he was solid. I think he got through 4 innings in Game 7, gave up I think 1 run. So shout out Buck Martinez, he got that one right. You're right though with those other depth pieces they got. When you look at the bullpen at the start of the season for the Jays, it makes you wonder how they got as far as they did in the season. Because some of the guys, like we said, the Jacob Barnes, the Dick Lovelady, like Amir Garrett, sure, Yarbrough didn't make the team, but just those two guys, some of the other names that we're going to get to later on that were pitching for this team, it makes you wonder how did they get that far. But they get into the regular season, opening day comes. You were there, obviously. You see it. Jose Barrios is the opening day starter, and if we think that Max Scherzer looked putrid, I mean, I don't know what you call that by Jose Barrios. We don't even know what his status is for 2026, but that was horrible against the Orioles. What was it, like a 12-2 loss, something like that? It was really bad on opening day. They finish out March, the few games that they had in March, 3-2. They're able to sweep the Nationals going into early April. But looking back at the end of spring training that was leading up to the regular season, some of the guys that were standing out, looking at some of the names, Alan Roden, he had the highest OPS in spring training. I had a 1200 OPS. We thought he was going to be a stud. Springer, I mean, God, that guy looked dead after the 2024 that he had. Comes into 2025 spring training and he looks dead. And then what do you know? He has the greatest season of his career. Again, we talked about Scherzer going down with a thumb injury. Who's called up? Easton Lucas. Legacy Easton Lucas starting early April. So you go into April 3-2 and you sweep the Nats from there. And the season kind of didn't go great in the beginning, right? We had a sub 500 April. We sweep the Nationals again after that Orioles split. And then what happens? We get swept by the Mets. The turning point, though, is right after that Mets series. What happens right around midnight? Vladdy Jr. signs a 14-year, $500 million deal.
Yeah, I mean, this was huge, and a big part of April was the difficulty of their schedule. I remember seeing a BNS tweet, and he's like, if the Blue, or listening to At the Letters, great podcast, um, and them just being like, if you go into May with a below 500 record, the world isn't falling. Like it was a very difficult schedule in April, and boy, was that Mets series just horrendous. I mean,
God.
I can remember the only highlight I can remember is Alan Roden hits a double right field wall. That was
Yeah.
beautiful, but also I think there was a Jeff Hoffman blown save in there, and it was not pretty. And to finish that, they sign Vladdy to a 14-year deal right before the Red Sox series. He may have been liking Yankees posts on Instagram. There may have been Red Sox accounts on Instagram saying, "Oh, Vladdy Juan Soto endeavors for the next 15
Mm.
years," but no, he's locked up for 14 years, which was huge. I mean, all Blue Jays fans were watching that interview on Sportsnet in spring training, where it's like, okay, do they have a deal? Is Vladdy going to announce that he has a deal? And then Vladdy walks up with Hector LeBron, and he just has like the saddest look ever. And that was the lowest of lows, just going into a season without Bo or Vlad locked up. And then in April, Mark Spiro, Ross Atkins do the job and give him 14 years, $500 million. All the old heads are saying that's way too much money. People thought he was going to get six. Like, six was a possibility. And boy, if they don't sign him then and then have to sign him after the postseason, maybe he could have got six. He had one of
Yeah.
the best postseasons ever. And I think this was a great deal at a great time. And gave the Blue Jays a lot of momentum.
Yeah. How about the Red Sox getting zilch? No
Yeah.
Devers.
No,
They
no.
lost their own guy. No Soto. No Vlad. They get nothing. So, but we'll see. I mean, they may have a good team next year, so we'll see how that goes. But Vlad's obviously he's the heart and soul of the team. The fact that he's here for 14 years, the timing of it too, because I mean, we're not expecting that. First of all, the Mets series, like you said, was so bad, but the fact that he was saying in spring training, look, sign me by spring training, or we're not talking about this during the season,
Yeah.
right? And it's going to be a distraction. Maybe it was a distraction early on, right? And he just wanted to get it out of the way. He got his money, and that was all wrapped up. Vlad also didn't have a great start to the season, and even his entire regular season, it wasn't bad. Again, Vlad's never really been a bad player, but he set obviously such a high standard in 2021, hitting almost 50 home runs, that he just hasn't really reached those heights yet. This year, back in April, it took him 19 games to hit his first home run, and I think for Bo, it took until like mid-May. It took them a while. Back in mid-April against the Braves, Spencer Strider comes back, makes his first start for the Braves in a while, coming off of Tommy John, and Vlad just launches off of him. So that was, it wasn't a great month for the Jays. It took Vlad a while to get going, took Bo a while. Santander obviously didn't get going. Springer didn't get going. None of the guys really got going. They finally called up Addison Barger, middle of the month. Guy hit 185 in his first 10 games. So the offense just really wasn't clicking. I don't know what sort of changes they made in May. Maybe the weather just got warmer and the bats started cooking. I don't know what David Popkins had going, but he was great. Shout out to him. Some of the other highlights too. Paxton Schultz. He's a guy that comes in April, and I believe the stat was he had the most strikeouts by a rookie for a J. Most strikeouts by a rookie in their debut. 8 strikeouts through 4 innings against the Mariners. Just such a random appearance. Like it's Paxton Schultz. Some of the guys we ran through this season, he comes in here. Schultz wasn't great. He was just kind of filler piece, but shout out to him for that performance. But again, you finish April and you're 2 games under. So now you're going into May thinking, well, what's going to go on with the team? And you get into May, Bowden Francis is struggling, and some of the guys they signed to fill in the rotation spots, these names, Jose Urena, Spencer Turnbull. I mean, to think these were the guys that were going to save our rotation. Again, we said it time and time again. It's crazy how they got to where they were when they had those guys starting games.
Yeah, well, we were excited about the acquisition of Spencer Turnbull. At least I was, and Blue Jays fans
Yeah,
were like, "This was a guy who did quite well in 2024. I think it was a 3.5 ERA over a large
yeah.
sample size, and okay, he's going to help out a rotation, help stabilize it at least with struggling Bowden Francis, who can't locate and throws 92, 93 meatballs. Um, Spencer Turnbull was awful. I mean."
God.
This guy was throwing 89, 90 miles per
Oh,
hour, just putrid stuff. And I thought the Jose Urania era was kind of sick. I kind of liked watching Jose Urania secretly. Like, he was
Uh,
throwing pretty hard. Like, he was throwing, what,
yeah,
96, 97. I was like, okay,
yeah.
okay. Throw this guy in the bullpen. He's our closer. I wasn't actually thinking that, but he was throwing quite hard, and later DFA'd him and Spencer Turnbull. My goodness, that was pretty wicked. And then Braden Fisher, a guy with not much hype, comes up, and he had a huge impact on the Blue Jays. He pitched a lot, and near the end of the season, he was sent down and couldn't be brought up for a while. But even the playoffs, he was good. And this guy is Braden Fisher is definitely a guy you can look at and slot him into the 2026 bullpen as a real piece. When Braden Fisher is fired up, I don't think there's anything better than that. There would be huge extra innings appearances where Braden Fisher would go 2 innings or something crazy like that, and he just amped up the whole time. It was
Yep.
amazing. So he was really cool in 2025, and excited to see what he does in 2026. Was not happy about the Michael Stefanik era though. Um, Boy, oh boy,
Ugh.
Michael Stefanik and Buddy Kennedy later on,
Oh yeah.
just guys who added zilch to the Blue Jays. And then after that, when their offense wasn't looking good, there goes their big bat, who was supposed to get hot in May. Okay, that was the big thing. Anthony Santander doesn't hit in April. He doesn't pick up
Mm-hmm.
the bat, but then
Mm-hmm.
he gets hot in May. And what does he do in May? He gets hurt and doesn't play for 3 months. So yeah, that was definitely not fun. And then you go into the Rangers series, and if you have nothing to do this offseason, watch back that awful Rangers series, because that is some of the worst baseball I've ever seen. Just
Yeah.
this is a Rangers team that should have been good. I mean, Wyatt Langford, Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon, who was there, and both teams were dead. It was
Yeah.
it
It was
was
bad.
awful. And I'm just putting laundry away, have the game in the background. Bo hits a home run. It felt like the Moneyball scene. I was like, oh my goodness, this is
Yep.
insane. And this was used as a reference point that the rest of the season. Hey, after this Bo home run, the Blue Jays have hit this,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And this was really the turning point in the Blue Jays' season, and was fun to watch that hit, but not the rest of the games in that Rangers series.
No. And going back to Braden Fisher for a second, actually, shout out to Keegan Matheson. Hopefully, we see him on the pod at some point. I love his story, though, when I think it was Braden Fisher was brought over for Kevin Biggio when we got rid of him in 2024. And I heard Keegan say at some point, I'm not sure where, that he went up to Braden Fisher and said, look, like, I didn't think this was noteworthy enough to write a story about it. And Keegan writes some great stories about the Blue Jays. Wasn't even worthy enough to write a story about it. The fact that they signed the guy or traded for the guy and they bring him over, and arguably, aside from Trey Savage, we can't necessarily call him a rookie in 2025 because he's still eligible for Rookie of the Year in 26, right? He's going to have a full season. Full season rookies for the Jays, Braden Fisher might be one of the best, right? Again, Barger obviously was great, but he had some significant play time at 24. Braden Fisher's one of the best. So shout out to him. He has a funky arm slot as well. Hopefully he's great in 26. You're right, though, with that Bo home run. There were a lot of turning points in the season, but that felt like one of the key ones. I mean, we talk about the offense being dead. That's just pure dead. Again, a 0-0 game against the Rangers, too, which you think the Rangers would be a good hitting team, and they were just crap all year. That was a big moment. And what did they do after that? The Athletics come into town, and boy, that was a slap. And I have the stats up here: 12-0 game one, 11-7 game two, 8-7 game three, 8-4 game four. They sweep the A's. That took the momentum into June. Quickly recapping May, though, some of the series that they had in May, going back to early May, they lose a series to the Angels. I think Jeff Hoffman blows a save at some point there. That doesn't look good. They lose a series to the Rays. They're not looking good. They lose a series to the Tigers. Somehow managed to sweep the Padres. They win a game 14-0. Nathan Lucas has a great walk-off hit. We lose to the Rays again. We actually get swept down when I don't know what it was, the hurricane season was coming in Tampa or something like that. It was too hot. I don't know what it was. We couldn't beat them. And then you're right, that Bo home run that catapulted us into that A series, and we take the momentum into June, where our good old friend Jordan Romano comes back, and Alejandro has a walk-off hit against the Phillies. We take that series, take the series against the Twins. We're in an 8-2 streak going into early June. Sweep the Cardinals, and what's the biggest moment you remember from that Cardinals series? You know very well that Jonathan Clase home run off Ryan Helsley. That was great to see.
I mean, nothing more unexpected than Jonathan Clase against Ryan Helsley was a shutdown closer with the Cardinals. You can look at
Yeah,
his stats in 2025 and be like, "Oh, this guy sucked with the Mets." He had tipping issues and whatever, but he's nasty. Like 100 miles per hour with hard slider. Jonathan Clase is up there, speedy outfielder who can't field. Let's see what you got for us. Hits a bomb. Hits a bomb. Dan Shulman's call was
yeah.
brilliant with
Oh yeah,
that, and boy, that was one of the best moments of the year. They ended up winning that game, and just the unlikeliness of that hit is kind of cliche, especially looking at the Blue Jays season. Like there's so many similarities. Like
yeah,
Blue Jays had no chance. They're going to finish fourth or fifth in the AL East, whatever. Um, Pencil it in, and then same thing here. Class A, you got no chance. Just sit down already. Hits a nuke
yep,
off Ryan Helsley. Sweep the Cardinals, and then you get swept by the Phillies. And then
yeah.
I think, well, I think the lowest of lows with the season was the Angels series you talked about. Man, oh man, losing a series to the Angels is just depressing.
Mm,
And then you lose a series to the White Sox.
ugh.
I tuned into Blair and Barker, and they're like, "You just can't lose these games. You can't lose these games," and
Oh
that
man.
wasn't good. And then you get beat by the D-backs, Guards, and Red Sox, and
Yep.
not pretty at all. They were
No.
16-10 in the month, but the way it was done, not the prettiest. Ali Sanchez, the goat. Robinson Pena, who I thought was going to be solid when we acquired him from the Marlins, was
Yeah.
not good. And then longtime Blue Jay Eric Swanson, 3-year tenure, I believe, and he was DFA'd. Just
Yeah.
splitter couldn't drop at all, and he was DFA'd. But a 16-10 July, 16-10 June for the Blue Jays there, just not the prettiest.
Yeah, we'll see Eric Swanson in Valhalla. He never made it back to the the Blue Jays. Shout out great 2023 season. We'll give him that. So yeah, you're right. The June month, it wasn't the best of months. Obviously, we got to July and August, and that's when the momentum started to pick up. The attendance numbers too for the Jays, they weren't great, especially when you went back to opening day in March. Something like 20,000 people on the second day of the season. I think it was 25,000 for opening day. I'll tell you right now, folks, we're not seeing that next year. 2026, we are not seeing that. I think it's the A's we're getting in the first series. We better see some 30s and 35,000s opening day because the hype just wasn't really there. I think June was sort of the first month. Again, we struggled 11 and 14 in April, and in May 16 and 12. So the hype was starting to build with this team. June was when it took a little bit of a leap. Again, that Cardinals sweep. You take the series versus the Phillies and the Twins early in the month, but then exactly the inconsistencies were there again. Like, how do you lose the series to the White Sox of all teams? So the inconsistencies were still there. The first time that we saw a consistent winning streak was early July, though. How about going into early July? We're on Canada Day. The Jays take the first game, actually, it was June 30th. Then on Canada Day, they absolutely launch on the Yankees. George Springer in the red Canada Day jersey, grand slam. Andres Jimenez is going deep off of Max Fried. Like, what? A lefty-lefty crime there. They sweep the Yankees at home for the first time in franchise history. And shout out Jamie Campbell, who was gracious enough to come on the podcast, throws the broom over his head after the game and calls out Michael Kay, who said the Jays, look, they're not a first place team. Yeah, shows out they were. They never lost first place again. The rest of the season took it all the way to the World Series. So shout out Jamie Campbell, shout out the Jays. That was a great series. No Varsho in that series, no Bo in that series, and they sweep the Yankees. I think that was the first time that we saw, okay, this team's for real. And they took it into the Angels and then the White Sox. 10-game win streak. That's the first time we saw it, and that was a great showing of what was to come.
Yeah, and in May and June, I just felt like there was a constant pattern: sweep, be swept, sweep, be swept. There was no consistency, and
Nope.
although the numbers may look good, like 16-10 looks good in June, 16-12 looks solid in May, especially after a losing record of 11-14 in April. But it just wasn't pretty, and you didn't have the confidence of okay, this Jays team is going to be good. Ross and Mark on their expiring deals can buy at the deadline. You didn't have that confidence, right? And then going into
Yeah.
July, you get that much needed confidence. And man, I saw that edit multiple times of Michael K being like, you can't dunk on the rim in July, dunk on the rim in October, and then it's just Vladdy highlights. Like that's an awesome video and edit. But a huge series for the Blue Jays. I think this has got to be their biggest series in at
Oh yeah.
least I don't know, probably a decade, because this gave them the lead in the division. They swept the Yankees for the lead, which is quite rare, and they did it without Varsho and Bo, two of their best
Yeah.
players. And man, that Springer grand slam on Canada Day, my goodness, against Luke Weaver,
Man.
who Springer owned all year, that was beautiful. And yeah, they were humming 10 game win streak. And then, of course, once you start humming, you got to bring it down a little bit with Buddy Kennedy and Lazaro Estrada coming up. But then my boy Joey Loperfido. Joey Loperfido, joke about it a lot, had a great year. Aiden and I were
Oh
looking
yeah.
at his stats last year. He had like
Yep.
350 all season.
Yeah.
And who knows how he can come into the picture in 2026, but he played quite well. Buddy Kennedy and Lazaro Estrada. I remember Lazaro Estrada having one like sick outing. Like, okay, I think it was out of the
Yeah.
bullpen. Okay, this guy could be like a bridge man, could maybe be a starter if we need him to. And gladly, we didn't need him to be a starter late in the year.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
those were that was definitely an era. And then JoJo Parker got drafted. That was
Yeah.
interesting, along with a few other guys, Jake Cook and Blaine Bullard, and big draft guys. So I love that. And yeah, and then they finish off the first half in Oakland or Sacramento with not a pretty series. If you think
No.
back to this, it's John Schneider walking to center field yelling at the umps because the Schneider home run was called foul. That's just what I think of. And then you kind of limp into the All-Star break, and it just looks like you need backup, you need help, you need to acquire guys at the deadline, and they did just that, but that was later, and that was a well-needed break for the Blue Jays in the All-Star break.
Oh yeah. Of all the random Jays we had this season, I think Buddy Kennedy for the name alone, it's a great name, but I think he's one of the best because no matter what, he was going to get a ring this year.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
played for the Dodgers, I think, for I don't know 2 or 3 games, something like that. So no matter what, he was going to get a ring. So shout out Buddy Kennedy. But you're right, the Jays definitely needed that break. They really did because coming out of the break, they looked amazing. You sweep the Giants right out of the break. How about the Yankees coming right back into town? It wasn't enough that you just swept them in the beginning of the month. You bring them back, and they take 3 or 4 from the Yankees, and they look great against them again. Then you go into the Tiger series. You take 3 or 4 from the Tigers as well. And at that point in the season, sort of end of July, early August, the Tigers look like one of the best teams in the league. Tarek Skubal is obviously looking like the Cy Young frontrunner. You're able to beat him. I believe that was on either the Friday night or the Saturday game. You beat him. You take 3 or 4 from them. But then, of course, this is just classic J style. You go into play Baltimore in the last season of the series and you lose 3 or 4. And we talk about the low points of the season. Oh my God, that was bad. You're losing 3 or 4 to the Orioles team that you talked about. They were really missing a guy like Santander. They had no leadership. They had no pitching. The offense was way down across the board. Adley Rushman doesn't even look like a major league hitter anymore. Gunnar Henderson had a down year, and you lose 3 or 4 to that team. That really looked bad. George Springer gets hit in the head. He has a
oh,
concussion. He's out for a couple of
oh,
weeks. That looked really scary. I mean, honestly, I'm watching that and I'm thinking he's done. Like, I didn't even know if he'd come back for the year. Of course, shout out to Chad Green. Chad Green, right in this point, I think he has a bad outing there, and he's DFA'd. Who do we bring right in though as an immediate replacement? switching dugouts from the Orioles to the Jays. Sir Anthony Dominguez comes over. I think it was on the Tuesday afternoon in between a doubleheader. They bring him over, and he ends up pitching against the Orioles. He was the first move to come, though, of the deadline. We look at right on around July 31st at the deadline. Shane Bieber's the next guy to come in. And boy, was he great. We still don't know what's the status of Shane Bieber going into 2026. Why did he take that option? Why did he come back? Is the elbow maybe not great and he wants to reevaluate himself, go back into the market in 27? Regardless, I think we're definitely happy to have him back. Then the next move, Louis Varland and Ty France come in from the Twins for Alan Roden and Kendry Rojas. And looking back at that deal, I think we have, 5 years of Louis Varland? Something like that in arbitration. That's an incredible move. The guy pumps 101. He was blowing fastballs by guys like Stanton in the playoffs. Varland pitched in pretty much every game. We've joked he's still warming up in the Jays bullpen. He's a great piece. We probably won't see Ty France come back, but I think Varland was a great piece. Alan Roden looked horrible with the Twins, just like he did with the Jays, so who knows what happens with him. And then the last move, Will Wagner shipped out. That was kind of a surprising one, but again, the playing time just wasn't really there. You talk about guys like Loperfido, sad to say for your guy, but the playing time just isn't really there. So they ship out Will Wagner to the Padres, and they bring in Brandon Valenzuela, switch hitting catcher. If they don't really like what Tyler Heineman has as a backup piece, he could be onto the 40 man. Maybe you see him, but that wrapped up their deadline, and you finished July 18-8. I think definitely their best month of regular season.
Yeah, well, you make the deadline sound really good, but it wasn't always like that. I think it was Shane Bieber the day before or a few days before the deadline we acquired him.
Yep.
Man, coming up to that trade deadline, it looked like we were going to come out with just Shane Bieber, and we did make that trade for Brandon Valenzuela, and that was just to free up a 40-man spot and acquire more catching depth. And once they freed that 40-man spot, what are we going to do here? Stephen Kwan rumors, cool. That's awesome. I would love that. But are we going to make any more moves, or are we really just going to do this? I thought it was going to be like a David Price kind of deadline or a Tulowitzki deadline.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a huge deadline because the Jays are producing. The Jays are showing that they're legit. And all we got was Shane Bieber, who you're banking on to be a solid starter coming off Tommy John after a few rehab outings. Really? And then a few minutes before the deadline, they solved two needs here with Louis Varland and Ty France trading Alan Roden and Kendry Rojas. Kendry Rojas is a very good left-handed pitcher. Alan Roden sadly got hurt but didn't produce when he was on the field with the Twins. And then looking back at Cal Steven, traded for Shane Bieber. Cal Steven is a good pitching prospect who I think pitched quite poorly with the Guardians. But was nails for us. So that's interesting. And also, when we acquired Shane Bieber, it was under the assumption that he was going to decline his player option, of course. It was a $12 million player option. Easily going to decline that. Get a bag in the offseason. And he opted in.
Yeah.
Shocking. How healthy is he right now? Doesn't matter. He opted in. He's on the Blue Jays for next year. Will he be on the opening day roster? That's to be seen. We don't know how much he was laboring in the postseason. When you look back at it, the signs were there. I mean, the mislocation is a sign of a guy recovering from Tommy John. The Jays pushing back his start in the World Series. It's another sign there that he wasn't fully healthy. So hopefully he has a healthy offseason and comes back in 2026 and provides. And I think it was a solid trade deadline. Solved a lot of needs here, and they all contributed. Shane Bieber, who didn't have the best numbers in the postseason and didn't look the best at times, made some huge starts. You think of that Seattle start. What was that? Game 3, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, Game 3. That was a fantastic start and really set the tone to turn that series around. And Louis Varland, as you said, appeared in so many games along with Mason Fluharty. And Ty France didn't do a whole lot with the Blue Jays. I remember he had maybe one home run, but was a solid bat that can hit lefties off the bench, which is all you really need, and also a Gold Glove first baseman to have behind Vladdy. So solid trade
Yeah.
deadline, and then you go into August after that stellar July, and you lose a series to the Royals. Not fun, not fun. How are you going to recover, Aiden? We go to Colorado. How are you going to recover? Well, let's score 45 runs in 3 games and only allow 6 runs. That's about the best way to recover from a loss to a bad team is to just go out and just go crazy on the really worst team in MLB and put up 45 runs, which is an average of 15 runs per game in 3 games against the Rockies. This was awesome, and I think Dalton Varsho hit his longest home run in this series as well.
I was just gonna say I think Varsho hit one like 500 feet
Oh
up to
yeah,
the upper deck. I mean that was insane. You talk about a reset you need. You lose that series to the Orioles, you look dead. You know you have that trade deadline. You think okay this is our reset. Here we go. Then you lose the series to the Royals. So that was the reset they needed. Varsho went deep 500 feet. Vlad went deep a couple of times. Ernie I think hit like 2 or 3 home runs in the series. Barger was launching balls. I honestly I wonder if everyone in the lineup hit a home run in that series, aside from maybe George Springer who had a concussion at the time. But
yeah,
even with a concussion, he probably could have still hit one over. They were absolutely killing them, and the Rockies weren't as bad as the 2024 Chicago White Sox, but that's still one of the worst teams I think we've ever seen. The pitching on that team, I think the staff had close to like a 6 ERA. I mean, that's just one of the worst teams we've ever seen. But that's what you have to do when you're a good team. You have to take out the bad teams. We look earlier in the year when they're losing a series to the White Sox. Like it's like what the hell? Like what's going on here? So 45 runs in 3 games. Talk about a reset. But of course the grueling schedule. They have to go to the Dodgers next, and now they lose the first 2 games. And it's like okay, where's that momentum again? Well, where did they get it back? Game 3 against the Dodgers, you needed to at least salvage one. At that point in the season, obviously in retrospect, it was Dodgers and Jays. Just period. Those were the 2 best teams in the league. Did we think that in mid-August? Maybe not. It was clear the Dodgers were, but it was like, okay, maybe the Jays, we can take them serious, maybe. So you had to salvage at least one game. We get late in that game, the Jays are down. Blake Trinan comes in, and boy, was he bad last year. I think it was Addison Barger goes first. He absolutely launches on a slider. Then Vlad goes yard. Boom, we take the lead. Or I think at that point we tied it. Then in the ninth inning, Alex Vesia comes in and Ernie Clement goes deep. And that home run was incredible as well. We talk about the Bo home run. That was huge. That Ernie home run to salvage that game was huge. And who has to close the game? Because Jeff Hoffman looked horrible
holy
in that game.
smokes!
He was walking the house. I think he walked like 5 or 6 batters in that game. He couldn't throw a strike. So who do we have to rely on? We talk about Braden Fisher being a great rookie. Mason Fluharty, man. I know we want him to work on another pitch, and hopefully he comes into next year with a changeup or something. But to strike out Shohei Ohtani on 9 pitches, working with a sweeper on 3-2, down and away, and he gets him to chase. Mookie Betts, who granted had a bad year, but this is a former MVP winner, gets him out, and you win that game. That was huge as well. You only take 1 out of 3 from the Dodgers, but the way they won it, that was huge. You take a series from the Cubs, take a series from the Rangers. I believe it was either Ernie or Kirk that had a walk-off hit there. And then, of course, you go into Pittsburgh and you lose to Paul Skeens and the Pirates, which is just great.
Yeah, and so many times this year we're like, we really just lost to this team. We really just lost to the White Sox. We really just lost to the Royals, and
Yeah.
now the Pirates. And this wasn't pretty. I think the Red Sox just acquired Johan Oviedo, and he gave up a leadoff home
Yeah.
run to George Springer.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And then he shoves the rest of his outing. And again, we faced Paul Skeens, and that was not pretty at all. And then he got a little Tommy Pham, Tyler
Ugh.
Heineman altercation. Right, right.
Yep.
What can be better than that? So that was pretty awful. And then just kind of ruins the momentum. Like you just take a series against 2 pretty good teams. Like the Chicago Cubs were a very good team this year. Take a series against
Yeah.
them. The Rangers, not so much. And then you go to Pittsburgh. Okay, should be a little easy 3 game sweep here, and you just lose it. You lose it to the Pirates, and then you have Shane Bieber in the next series against the Miami Marlins. How is he going to look? He's looked good in Buffalo, that's for sure. I think he had a great last outing in Buffalo, and then he comes out in Miami. Oh my goodness, this guy was amazing. And we
Yeah.
talked about that change up later in the year, that new kick change he incorporated since his last appearance in MLB. And man, he looked stellar in that first outing. It was
Oh yeah.
fun watch. It was like a David Price debut, Jose Barrios debut kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
And okay, is this guy going to be our ace going to the playoffs? Is he going to pitch game one of the wild card of the ALDS, whatever we're playing in? And didn't end up being the case, Kevin Gosman. But he looked amazing. And then he beat the Minnesota Twins. Man, they were awful. You look at their lineup at the end of the year. Holy
Oh
smokes.
God.
What is that lineup? There's some good players in there. Royce Lewis, Luke Keyshaw. But
Byron
man,
Buxton, shout out.
Byron Buxton as well, but you got Edouard Julien, shout out Canadian, but
Yep.
did not have a good year. And then the
No.
pitching, and man, oh man. And then you face the Brewers, who you mentioned the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Man, the Brewers were above them.
Oh
The
yeah.
Brewers
Oh
were
yeah.
the best team in all of baseball, and had been that all year. How are the Jays going to look against the Brewers? This is a big test. The Brewers take 2 of 3 from the Blue Jays and just took full control in that series. Like it just felt like they were dominant.
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't a Milwaukee Brewers team that is going to choke in the first round of the playoffs. They ended up doing that, but it felt like they were different. It felt
Yeah.
like they were different, and they played really well against our Blue Jays. And then how are you going to react after that? Let's pick up some guys, okay? We can't get lefties out right now.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
Brendan Little, this was the peak of the Brendan Little struggles.
Oh.
And what are you going to do? Hey, Ryan Barucki, you
Ugh.
played for us in what, 2018, 2019. Come back. We
Come
saw you
on.
get lefties out this year with Pittsburgh. Do the same with us. Boy, oh boy, was that a failure. And then IKF on waivers by the Pirates. You didn't trade him at the trade deadline. Ross wants him back. Okay. IKF said once he was gone from the Blue Jays, Ross is like, we'll get you back later. And Ross did that just then, picking up IKF, and
Yep.
he had an impact on this year, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It was an impact. Was
Yep.
it positive or negative? It was an impact. You look at he had a walk off against the Astros against a really good closer in Abreu, a really good
Yeah.
reliever in Abreu, and cool. I love a fun IKF
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then he hit some in the postseason. Well, no, I don't think he hit it all in the postseason. And he had some. I remember he had some defensive miscues against the Yankees that weren't fun. And then you get to the World Series.
No.
You get to Game 7, Aiden. Did IKF have an impact in Game 7?
Uh, I, I really don't want to relive that memory
You
right now.
saw it. You saw it.
Oh my God. It's always going to be there. The picture's always going to be there. Do I want to remember it? No. And I hate it, man, because that was my guy. 2025, Joey Lopefito. That's your guy. That was
Yeah.
my guy, man. IKF. I loved him. And then he does that at the end. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Did he take a big enough lead? I don't know. It's all done. We probably won't see him back in 2026. The Jays love IKF. I don't know what it is. That we brought him back a second time. Are they going to do the same thing next year? I don't know. He'll go to like the White Sox or something, be put on waivers, and they bring him back for a playoff run. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, again, hopefully Bo doesn't, if they bring Bo back or say it's Jimenez or someone, doesn't hurt their knee, and then we need a shortstop replacement. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But for whatever reason, they love IKF. I don't know. He had a solid enough contribution until obviously Game 7. You mentioned, though, when we're getting to end of August, we're starting to think, okay, this is probably a playoff team. Is Shane Bieber that ace? Is it Kevin Gosman? Trey Savage. How about that? Maybe by next year, it's not going to be a crazy take. If I throw it a Trey Savage Game 1, hopefully that's the case. But you go into September after a 15 and 12 August month, not as good as July. July obviously was their best regular season month, but still solid enough in August. And you go into September, and their first series is against the Reds. Kind of a middling team. They ended up making the playoffs, but again, this is not really a top tier team. You should be taking at least 2 out of 3, which they did, but they had the opportunity again to continue that momentum, win the first game. Bo hits a huge home run off Emilio Pagan to, I think it was to take the lead 5-4, something to that effect. And they think, okay, you know what? Who's someone that's been having a solid season down the stretch? Tommy Nance. Okay. Has like a sub 1 ERA at some point, or a sub 2. He looks great. They think, okay, here's your shot. Close the game. He can't do it. So they think, okay, Tommy Nance, you're not the guy. Let's go to Brendan Little. And man, the things I'm gonna say about Brendan Little, we'll save that for another time. But he just can't do it. You talk about the peak of the Brendan Little struggles at that point. The guy could not get a curveball to the plate. That's just what it was. And even in the playoffs, he cannot. That's the. Okay, I think that's the most frustrating part about Brendan Little is he has such a good wipeout curveball. Nobody can hit it. I think it had one of the highest strikeout rates in the league, right? Some like 50% or something. It's crazy, but almost 90% of the time he can't get it to the plate, so nobody's going to swing at it. So that's the most frustrating thing. If they can figure out Brendan Little next year, I can stop the Brendan Little slander, and he could be a really good piece. And maybe we don't need another lefty. Ricky T would be nice, but maybe Brendan Little can figure it out. Anyhow, you take that series versus the Reds, then you go into the Bronx. You finally go into the Bronx after the Yankees came to our home twice, and again, I'll just never understand. I don't know what Bo was doing. It was a rainy day. I don't know what he's doing sliding into home plate with his knees. That's the last we saw of Bo Bichette in the regular season. We didn't see him until the World Series. So it was sayonara to Bo Bichette at that point. You lose the series to the Yankees, but then as you mentioned, you come back to the White Sox. IKF ties up the game, clutch single. Tyler Heineman is coming in here and he's walking off the game. Later in that series, Kevin Gausman comes in, throws a complete game against the Astros. So the momentum was coming back. You take a series versus the Orioles, and then who makes their debut? And we were both in class to see it, with shout out Dr. Taylor McKee in his class, the guy who's responsible for inspiring this podcast. Our guy Trey Savage comes through, and man, that was a fun debut to watch. I think 9 strikeouts he had in his first outing, and he looked great against the Rays.
Yeah, he was so good, and it was really unpredictable. You can say it now. He was great from the jump, but no, that's not really the case. You look at his minor league numbers, didn't light it up. I mean, Buffalo, he had his share of struggles, and a lot of it was command wise. Was the stuff decreasing
Yeah.
as well? It was, but then it jumped back up in the major leagues, and the command just wasn't there. We saw that in the postseason sometimes as well. That splitter just would float away and be uncompetitive, and he even ditched it at times. But man, that debut was special. That was so fun to watch. This was a Rays team that has had her number for years on end, and a rookie
Yeah.
comes in and just shoves. And man, the swings. I remember Brandon Lau trying to hit
Oof.
against this guy. It was like he had never seen a splitter before. Oh my goodness. It was something to watch, and that just continued. It continued the end of September and then going into October, and he was a huge asset for the Blue Jays the whole postseason and was a huge reason why they made it to the World Series and had success in the World Series as well. And then Braden
Yeah.
Fisher, I talked about Braden Fisher before, a huge 2 inning save, amped up. That was awesome
Yeah.
too. You split with the Rays, and we touched on it. Max Scherzer,
Oh.
maybe not his best outing ever. The Jays lose
Yeah.
20-1. Tyler Heineman. Did, did,
Oh.
did Tyler Heineman give up more than Scherzer with 10 runs? It was
Oh
close.
my god.
Might have been
Uh,
close.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It felt like they both gave up 50, and of course it was an Apple TV game. I really wanted to
Oh,
watch that game. It's like it's the pennant race. Can we watch this? And then maybe it was better that I didn't get to end up seeing that game, but
well,
that
well.
was just
Also,
horrible.
I believe Sportsnet bought the rights to that game as well
Oh, that's
because
right.
because
That's
they were
right.
about to clinch the playoff spots. So Sportsnet's like, we want to show this to our viewers, get some views ourselves.
True.
We're gonna buy this game. Jays lose 20-1. I bet half the fan base is out by the fourth inning. So
Yeah.
man, well, what a time! And then you go clinch a playoff spot with Trey Savage that Sunday, and then you play the Red Sox. This is a huge stretch. The Yankees are on our tail. The Yankees have the easiest end of schedule you will ever see. Orioles, White Sox, White Sox, White Sox. Like, oh my goodness, just have someone in there. So the Jays needed to win these games. They faced the Red Sox. The Red Sox had their number. They lost the first two of the 3 games against the Red Sox, and then they won a bullpen game. And can the Yankees lose a game? We need the Yankees to lose a game. It will make us feel a lot more comfortable. They don't. The Yankees don't lose a
Nope.
game against the awful teams. They have some momentum going to the playoffs. Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. This could be bad. Um,
Yeah.
but the Toronto Blue Jays faced the Rays. I was at game 162. Man,
Wow.
that was amazing. Just scoreboard watching, and you didn't need to because that last game against Ian Seymour,
No.
they killed it. The Kirk grand slam, the two home runs. My oh my, the Jays sweep the Rays. They win the division. Oh my goodness, this is amazing.
That last week was one of the most stressful and intense and exciting and every word you can think of in the book. That was incredible because we remember looking after the Sunday. It's like, okay, you clinched a spot in the playoffs. Cool, let's take a break. No, the Yankees can go 6-0 and they're going to win the division.
Yeah.
And I just remember playing out the scenarios. Okay, Yankees go 6-0. We just have to go 4-2 because we had the tiebreaker, which was key by beating them up so much in the
Yeah.
regular season. They go 5-1. We can go 3-3. You lose the first two games to the Red Sox. It's like, what are we doing here? I think that was when Santander came back and had that near grand slam. And oh my God, he was such a foul ball king. He just couldn't keep the ball fair. And of course, we lose the first two, so it's pretty clear. The Yankees, they're not going to lose. What do you have to do? Just win the next four. Oh, and it's just the Red Sox in the race. Just, pretty easy. And of course, how do we beat the Red Sox in the last game with a bullpen game? Shout out Louis Varland and Eric Lauer, who get us through, I think, 5 innings of
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah.
The Jays were so good at bullpen games this year. I don't know. Something about Varland and Lauer, that combination was great. Hopefully, we see more of that in 26. You're right. Just absolutely kill the Rays. That last game was incredible. You mentioned that was the Kirk legacy game. You see the emotion coming out of him. I think Springer went deep again to get to 32 home runs. Barger adds another just so we can get to 20 home runs, make it an even number. He's incredible. The scenes after that, we had so many Vlad moments during the playoffs where he's just looking up to the sky, but especially that one where he felt it for the first time that, okay, we're going to the playoffs and we won the division. You finish out the month of September 15-10. You win 94 games. That was the most games that they won since their 93 season, where they won 95 games in that year. So it was so clear by then. We've won the division. Forget about that wild card series. The Jays don't like the wild card series. So we finally get to the ALDS, and we're wondering who's going to be the matchup. Are the Red Sox going to make it? Are they going to be the opponent? Is it going to be the Mariners? Who's going to make it? It's the Yankees. Of course, it's the Yankees, and the Yankees come to town. And to say that they weren't ready for what they were about to experience, I think would be an understatement, honestly. They were absolutely killed.
Yeah, and it makes it so much better that it's the New York Yankees. Just an organization that's very easy to hate and a fan base
Oh,
that
yeah.
is a little rowdy. And
Yep.
you've had their number all year. Michael K talks his garbage. Let's face you on October, okay? Let's face you.
Okay.
Kevin Gausman, game one, really close game. Key thing I remember is Louis Varland coming in. They take out Kevin Gausman. A big thing in the postseason was pulling Kevin Gausman 5 2/3 every time.
Uh-huh.
They bring in Louis Varland. Let's see what he's got. Let's see if he's amped up today. 101 by Stanton. Just an awesome win. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had a home run. Alejandro Kirk had a home run. Huge 10-1 win. And who's starting game two? A guy you thought was starting game one in Trey
Yep.
Savage. He has a no hitter through 5 1/3. Aiden, this is the postseason. It's not the regular season anymore. How many strikeouts? He has 11. 11 strikeouts against the New York Yankees. I just remember Cody Bellinger, a contact hitter who doesn't strike out a lot, just looked gross against the splitter. He had the
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Lau effect, and man, without the traject machine, and shout out Avery Chenier, who was on our
Yep.
last episode. We talked about how the traject machine doesn't have the Trey Savage arm slot and the Tyler Rogers arm slot, and
Yeah.
man, that proved costly in this game against Trey Savage because they looked like they hadn't watched film on him before.
Yeah. And shout out to our professor again, Dr. Taylor McKee, who was responsible for inspiring this podcast. And this is when we started it, right?
That
And
is
he
true.
was so right. What a great time to start it. Right before game one. I was at game one. You obviously went to later games and saw the great World Series game, obviously in game one. That was incredible. It was a close game, though. We didn't really think that we were necessarily going to win that game. It's like a 2-1 game. Here comes Stanton. Here comes Judge. I don't know what Judge was swinging at. I think it was bases loaded for Judge, and he's swinging at a splitter in the dirt. And then Varland gets Stanton. And then they just unloaded from there. Nathan Lucas was getting big hits. Even in game two, yeah, we put in guys like Justin Brule and Tommy Nance, and the Yankees got 7 runs, but we put up 13. Just a casual 13. I think Don Varsho went like 4 for 4, 2 home runs, a triple, a double. Springer was launching. Everyone was in the action. Ernie Clement had a home run off Max Fried. It was incredible. And you go into game three, and this is when it started to feel like, okay, maybe the rails are starting to fall off here. You lose game three. You mentioned Bieber not looking too sharp with his location. That was really not a good Shane Bieber start. I don't think he made it through even 3 innings. And then I have no idea. I will never understand how Aaron Judge hit that ball about 582 feet off of Louis Varland, 100 in on the hands like this, 100, 101, whatever it was. Thank God that home run didn't mean anything. I've heard this so much that home run didn't mean anything, and it's great because if the Yankees ended up beating us, they would have used that home run forever against us. Props to him. He's one of the best hitters I've ever seen. I don't know how he did that, but thank God it didn't mean anything. And in classic Blue Jay style, it didn't mean anything. Why? Because they win with a bullpen game in game four. They don't like the matchup with Max Scherzer. Chris Bassett's not healthy enough to come back. So, oh yeah, Louis, you just gave up that home run. Yeah, you're going to come right back in. And he was nails. I think he gave you 2 innings. I think he even wanted to go in the third inning. He just said, Skip, put me out there. He was incredible. 8 pitchers combined to shut down the Yankees in game four. Nathan Lucas, huge 2-run single off of Devin Williams in the 8th inning, I think it was. And you're moving on. You're going to the ALCS. What a way to do it. First time since 2016 going back to the ALCS. And it was just so sweet doing it against the Yankees, and you see Vlad with the Yankees lose. That was just scenes, man, just chills.
Such a great series, and when we were doing our predictions, I remember mentioning that, hey, this Blue Jays team likes it funky. They're not conventional. They're not
yeah, true,
predictable at all. Okay, are we going to sweep the Yankees? Doubt it. They lost game three. I remember saying, watch out if they win the bullpen game against Cam Schlittler. If you guys remember, Cam Schlittler was like Trey Savage against the Red Sox. This was one of the best starts I had ever seen. And then you got to face Cam Schlittler. Okay, we don't have Bassett, don't have Scherzer because they're not on the roster. And it's a bullpen game. What are we going to do? Sky's kind of falling. Man, it's what the Jays do, man. They win when they need to. They won here. That Nathan Lucas hit was awesome. I was waiting for that moment. I was like, we can't win this without a big moment here. And of course, Yankees legend Devin Williams allows a 2-run single and ends his tenure with the Yankees. And then you move on to the ALCS. You're watching games, okay? You're watching Tigers Mariners. Who are we gonna face?
Oh man.
I sure hope it's the Tigers because the Tigers can't hit at all. Who do we get? We get the Mariners. The Mariners pitching staff. Well, both pitching staffs threw so many innings. I think it was the last game. The last game they played in that series. How many innings was it, Aiden?
Oh my God, 15?
15?
15? Felt like 20? I don't know. Went until like 3 in the morning. It's insane.
Yeah, and that was awesome to see as a Blue Jays fan. Keep pitching, guys. Keep pitching. Oh, you're bringing in Luis Castillo. Do it.
Good.
Yeah, Logan Gilbert. Okay, yeah, bring him on in. And then we face the Mariners game one. Let's take advantage of this. Let's take advantage of this pitching staff that is clearly overworked, clearly tired. Who do you got game one? You got Bryce Miller on what, 2 days rest? 2 days rest.
Yeah.
Let's see it. He didn't have a great year at all. Let's see what he can give us. Boy, he was excellent. This was a tough game to watch, and especially knowing that you couldn't take advantage of the fact that their pitching staff was depleted. You just left them off the hook with a clearly, well, not clearly tired because he was pumping 98. Bryce Miller. I have no clue where that stuff was coming from, but man, that was tough to lose game one. You lose game two as well. Aiden, we're down 2-0. Okay.
Oh my God.
What is going on here? I remember coming on the pod. You're giving me facts about I think it was George Kirby and why we can be optimistic about George Kirby. That was a depressing time of this podcast. It just was. Lose game two, come back, win game three. Vlad, Kirk, Barger all go deep. Shane Bieber, we talked about this talked about this before. Looked outstanding in Game Three, and that was against was that Luis Castillo or George Kirby?
Yep. It was Castillo, yeah.
Castillo, that's right.
And we talked about going after the first two games, going into Seattle, and I still remember making the graphic, and I'm writing it's 2-0 Mariners, and it's all so depressing. But you're right. I remember mentioning on that podcast, looking at George Kirby's ERA, and it was like an 8 or a 6 or something really bad against the Jays, and proved to be right. I mean, he was horrible. So the optimism, proved to be worthy there. Jimenez, though, he was the big guy. He was getting the big home runs. And I just remembered the Dan Shulman call. He did it again. Somehow this guy did it. Jimenez, who was batting in the ninth spot, he was somehow the guy to come through. And that's why the first two games of the series were really strange because look at how you absolutely killed the Yankees with, 10-1, 13-7, and then 10-3 in game two. Josh Naylor's back in his hometown. He's launching nukes in Toronto. It's like, what's going on here? And then, 13-4 in game three. We're just absolutely launching. Barger just had to add one at the end, to make it 13-4, hit one about 600 feet. Then we go to 8-2 in game four. We win that game. That's the Scherzer game. He comes out there. He's absolutely dialed. He's had, what was it, like 22 days of rest or something like that. Yeah. Has the moment with John Schneider. He's barking at him, telling him to get off the mound. He gets through like 6 innings. Okay, we're right back in at 2-2. And I tell you what, for people listening, I have notes down for game five, and my only note is Brendan Little. Because who's the guy that they go to when you have the lead? Sure, they didn't score a lot of runs, but you have a 2-1 lead. Trust your guys. Jeff Hoffman, sure, he wasn't consistent during the year. Maybe Sir Anthony Dominguez walked some guys. I think Brendan Little walked some guys also. And what does he do? He comes in there. I think it was something like he walked the bases loaded or he gave up a home run to Cal Raleigh, then walked the bases loaded. Dominguez has to now finally come in, and Eugenio Suarez has one of the biggest home runs in Mariners history. To think about bleak moments during the regular season, to think, okay, it's over. If that didn't feel like it's over, the Mariners have the momentum on their side. Never have been. We talk about not being to the World Series in, 32 years? How about never going to the World Series? Ever. They have the momentum on their side. They have their pitchers lined up to go game 6 and 7. And who's the guy on the mound? Who needs to save the season in game 6? It's the 22-year-old. It's Trey Savage, of course. Now, he wasn't as sharp. Call it what it is. He wasn't as sharp in game 6. And I don't know what it was, but the baseball gods were just on his side. I think it was 3 or 4 innings in a row that he was ending the inning with a double play or something to that effect. IKF has the ground ball that's hit to him, flips it to Jimenez. He's looking up at the sky. LeBron and Dwayne Wade moment there. And you win game 6. Vlad and Barger go deep. There you go. 6-2 win. Game 6. Here we go. It's game 7. Vlad has that moment. And shout out Kit Wayman, who came on the podcast, made the Born Ready shirt. Vlad has his moment. He looks out into the sky and he says he's ready to go. Game 7. This is the closest they've been in 32 years. And, of course, classic J style, we're dead in the beginning. Julio's going deep. Raleigh's going deep. Beaver doesn't look good. Nobody looks good. And who's the guy that we brought over in 2021? Edward Bizzardo comes into the game. I don't know what Dan Wilson was doing there. And who's the guy we brought over? $150 million man. George Springer gives us the biggest moment, arguably, since Joe Carter. Biggest moment in Jays history since then.
What a moment. What a moment. This was insane. And after the Cal Raleigh home run, I thought we were done. I just thought we were done.
Oh,
Oh
easily.
my goodness. I've seen this so many times where, okay, depressing home run, just go out in sad style. And it was a great run. It was a great year. Like, oh, wow, we never thought we'd come here. Yay, yay. George Springer. Oh, my goodness. And to see him run around those bases, I just love when guys are fired up. Boy, was he fired up. The Jays were going to their first World Series in 32 years. This was insane. And such a huge moment for this franchise, for Rogers Communications, for the Toronto Blue Jays franchise. Like, wow, we are going to the World Series. Is it against the LA Dodgers? Yeah, that doesn't matter, though. That doesn't matter. Are they going to win? Probably. Hopefully not a sweep. Hopefully not as bad as the Yankees-Dodgers series from the year prior. But the Jays are going to the World Series. This was amazing. So cool.
Yeah.
And then we go to the World Series. I was at game one. Boy,
Oh,
oh boy, what a way to continue that momentum. As I said, everyone thought the Dodgers were going to win that.
oh yeah.
Dodgers, deferrals. They got all the best players in the league. Yeah, okay. Is the rotation the best thing I've seen in sports? Yeah, okay. But the Blue Jays hit good pitching. And
Yeah.
boy, was it the same in game one. Blake Snell on the mound. They crush him. They crush him.
Big time.
My
Big
goodness.
time.
It was Blake Snell, right? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Blake
Yep.
Snell. And then this moment in my mind, it's it's Addison Barger coming in against Anthony Bonda. He came in for Davis Schneider. I was thinking, I was standing next to my buddy Luke Parrott. I was like, they're bringing in a lefty to face a lefty? What is going on here? You keep the righty in to face the lefty. What are we
Yep.
doing? And what does Barger do? Shuts me up. Puts a home run in the stands. Oh my goodness, the place is on fire. This was insane. Game one of the World
Yeah.
Series. The Blue Jays are up so much. A lefty
Yeah.
lefty grand slam. Insane. And then um, game two we look at, and what happened in game two? I forget. Game one.
I'm gonna I'm gonna be quite transparent here. I didn't quite write down too many notes for the World Series just
Okay.
because of the pain that caused, especially being there at Game 7. But I will say though, going back to the World Series when they clinched, the biggest thing for me was just looking at the celebration. I mean, there's tears flowing down Vlad's face as we're clinching, right? And to see what it meant for the Dodgers in contrast, they win the game, and I think it was Sasaki that closed the game against the Brewers, and they're just like, yeah, they're just clapping hands, and it's like, all right, we're going to the World Series because it's just a normal thing. They're expected to go every year. When you have a team like this, and I can only imagine for Mariners fans that have never been, but 32 years that we haven't been, you can see what it means. And still, to this day, we're recording this on December 30th of 2025. People are still talking about the Blue Jays, probably more than the Leafs at this point.
Oh yeah.
I think the Raptors are having a decent season. They might be a good team this year. The Leafs are crap, and
Get the
people
Leafs
are
out of
in
here.
this.
Get the Leafs out of here. We're not talking Leafs.
Yeah, yeah, we're not talking that exactly. Only Jay stuff behind me there, and shout out some of the pictures I got back here, showing the record, showing the Vlad screaming moment. The team is there. Everyone is still getting Jay's presents, on Christmas. Everyone's still talking about them. That's why the hype is going to be there, right, going into 2026. So it meant so much. I wonder how can we even top that going into 2026. Like the hype was just so insane and out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere this year. How are we going to top that? The only way to top it is by winning it, I guess. But obviously with the World Series, there were some great moments. Trey Savage had a great game in Game 5. Bichette obviously has that incredible home run. And Eric Lauer is great in that 18-inning game. He throws like 5 shutout innings. I don't know how he managed to do that. So props to the Dodgers. They won it. They were the better team in 7 games. It was one of the best World Series we've ever seen, but I don't ever want to relive Game 7 ever again in my life. Let's just win it next year.
Yeah, that was very heartbreaking, and boy, I think it took us a few days to talk about that game on the podcast.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the only way to heal from this is to win next year. The only way to
Yeah.
top this is to win
That's it.
next year. So what does
Yeah.
Rodgers do? Do they sit back with their money in their pocket from the postseason and all the views that you see? Like it was every series you see. Whoa, the Blue Jays are setting records viewers wise. Sportsnet is going off. That's money for Rodgers Communications. And are they going to reinvest it back into this team? Or are we going to do renovations? What's going on here? We want players. And what does he do? The first impact free agent signing, the biggest free agent signing in Blue Jays history, is Dylan Cease. He signs a
Yeah.
7-year, $210 million deal. Man, this guy is consistently producing. This is 5
Yeah.
straight years of 30 plus starts from a guy who throws very hard. This is very rare to see. With guys you see that throw very hard, you see a lot of injuries. You see a lot of arm injuries, a lot of elbow injuries. Dylan Cease hasn't had that, and it's truly
No.
amazing. he credits it a lot to his meditation and yoga stuff, and that's why he chose 84, I guess, because it's some yoga stuff. He's an interesting human, but boy, is he a good baseball player. And he should be our ace for the next 7 years, and that should be fun. Was he outstanding and Cy Young level last year? No, his ERA was mid fours, low mid fours, and a lot of people are like, we just gave a guy $210 million who had the same ERA as Jose Barrios last year. they're,
Yeah.
they're different. They're different pitchers, okay.
Oh yeah.
And let's see what Pete Walker and his pitching staff have for Dylan Cease. Is there going to be a new pitch? Or are the pitch usages going to be adjusted? This could be interesting. And then they make more signings.
Yeah. Cody Ponce comes over, right? 3 years, 30 million. I don't know how, but I saw this online that his wife predicted that he was going to get that exact
Yeah.
deal. 3 years, 30 million. He somehow ends up with it. He won the KBO MVP award. Granted, the KBO obviously isn't MLB. It's not even the MPB, but it's still a decent enough league. We saw Eric Lauer come over from there, right? And he was great. So we'll see what sort of role he fills into. They get Tyler Rogers, who actually gets a deal more expensive than Jeff Hoffman, 3 years, 37 mil. And what a funky arm slot. You talked about the traject machine. We need to see. I don't know when it's going to happen. Is it going to be game 3 of the season? Is it going to be game 25? Whatever it is, the first time we see Trey Savage immediately go to Tyler Rogers, that's going to be incredible to see how the batters just react to that. But the biggest thing of the offseason, and folks, the Jays are not done. Whether they get Bo, whether they get Tucker, Bregman, whatever it is, they're not done with the offseason. This money that they've spent so far, which by far is the most in free agency thus far by a large margin, this doesn't handicap them to get those other players. And in fact, this is a really good sign. Similar to, we think back to their 92-93 championship runs. After 92, I think it was some of the big names were like Paul Molitor, Dave Winfield, Ricky Henderson. They were bringing in some really big names, and they had just won the World Series. They wanted to make sure that they were going to fill up that roster to make sure they could win it again. And what do you know? They won it again in 93. So this is huge to think, okay, we got to game 7. They could have taken it easy. They could have said, you know what, this was a nice run, and we'll go back to being sort of a early exit playoff team. No, they're putting the foot on the gas. They're going here. Like you said, 200 million for Dylan Cease. This is huge, I think, to go out and get these kinds of guys. That bolsters the rotation. Rogers bolsters the bullpen. So this is the final decision. Who did they get? Is it Bo? Is it Tucker? We're hearing some Alex Bregman now. Is Alex Bregman the guy that comes in and fills out the lineup? Like we said, the Santander thing can sort of be an addition in its own right because he didn't really do anything last year. So if he provides 30 home runs, that's like getting a new free agent signing. But I still think to get over the hump, they are one bat away. I know you want Tucker, and I lean more towards Bo, but like we said, let's just get them both. And if we don't, I think we'll be happy getting even just one of them.
Yeah, and for all those baseball fans listening right now who've been refreshing their Twitter for the past week and a half, saying,
Yeah.
"What's going on here? No, nobody's signing." I think the last signing was Brad Keller to the Phillies or something
Yeah.
like that. Watch out. I think the week after New Year's,
Yeah.
there will be a lot of big signings because man, it's almost January. Hey, we got spring training around the corner. These
Yeah.
guys have to sign. Tatsuya Imai's deadline is coming up soon.
Yeah.
Um, where will he go? Heard the White Sox as a name as well. So they got Murakami, but it'll be interesting. I think that a lot of the big free agents will be off the board soon, and there are still a lot of good free agents, even pitching. Framber Valdez,
Yeah.
Ranger Suarez, those are big names. And then you got Bregman, Tucker, Bo. What are those markets like? There's a lot of questions, and I'm sure they will be answered very soon. And boy, this was a great season, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's going to be a great season next year as well. Um,
Yeah.
Ross and company have said that they're not emotionally tied to last year's roster, which some people are like, "Oh, come on!" Like, I want Max Scherzer, I want Sir Anthony Dominguez back, I want all those guys back. I love it. You
Yeah.
didn't win the World Series. Why do you have to bring all these guys back who have emotional ties to the organization? Like, no, go out, get guys who will help your ball club, and it will definitely be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about the prospects too, maybe some pieces internally that could have an impact. Go check out, I made a video on some prospect highlights. Check that out before the new year. The biggest one, it's Ricky Tiedemann, right? We've talked about this guy a lot. It would be nice if the Jays could go out there and get a lefty. Caleb Thielbar, I think, just signed, went back to the Cubs. So there aren't really a lot of great lefty options unless you want to trade for somebody. But then again, who are they really going to trade for? Ricky T is a guy that can get up to 100 from the left side with a wipeout slider. He hasn't been healthy at all in the minor league system. I think the most innings he threw was like 70, but that was back in like 2022 when he was like 19, 20 years old. So it'll be interesting to see in spring training when, we get to spring training and guys like Vlad and Springer, whatever, they're just sort of easing into it. That's the time for guys like Ricky Tiedemann to shine. If he can prove, and I think I said this before, that, oh, maybe does he break camp opening day? That's probably highly unlikely. But if he can build up, maybe, whether it's as a bullpen guy or as a starter, if he can come in July and August, sort of be like a mid-season acquisition type for the Jays, that would be huge. And then some other guys too. Yohendrick Panango, RJ Schreck, some outfield depth pieces. The Jays have a plethora of starting pitching, of outfield pieces, of prospects. Do these guys, Joey Loperfido, I hate to do it, but throw him in there as well. Some of the other guys, the Davis Schneiders, the Miles Straws, there's a lot of these extra pieces, including the prospects as well. Do they decide, okay, maybe the playing time just isn't there for these guys, especially if they get a Tucker? Where's the playing time for all these prospects, right? Some of these guys that are like 24, 25 years old, like the Alan Roden types, they had to move on from Alan Roden. They don't have the space. So do they get to the point where it's like, okay, maybe there's a Mason Miller trade in there. Let's throw in like three or four prospects and get him or something. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those extra pieces and with the prospects.
Yeah, I think Ricky T is really interesting. I think best case scenario, he's an impact starter who consistently produces and isn't injured. That's best case scenario. I think worst case scenario,
Yeah.
he could be a guy like Justin Robleski out of the bullpen, a
Yeah.
lefty reliever who did very well in the World Series. May not be a fan of Andres Jimenez, but he did very well in the World Series and is an impact left-handed pitcher out of that Dodgers bullpen. I think Ricky T could be the same thing. Robleski was a starter as well, and it's a different situation. The Dodgers have five aces, and they're just moving them to the bullpen because they have way too many guys. Ricky is just that he can't stay healthy. So I think that's worst case scenario, and worst case scenario is awesome. Like I will definitely take a Justin Robleski in
Yeah.
my bullpen. Like really worst case scenario is Ricky T doesn't make an impact on this 2026 Blue Jays team, but
Yeah.
we'll stay away from injuries, stay away from that. I think that the floor is Justin Robleski, and I think that's a very useful player for this Blue Jays team. And then looking
Yeah.
back at what we've done as a podcast, and this has
Yeah.
been really fun. We had 15 episodes covering the postseason all together, and recently there hasn't been anything to talk about, so we've dove right into the baseball industry to see who wants to talk ball with us and just who would like to come on the podcast. And we've had Professor Dr. Taylor McKee and Kit Wayman and Jamie Campbell, Avery Chenier, and some others we're talking to right now, and
Yep.
we enjoy those thoroughly. We think it's
Yeah.
a lot of fun to hear insights from all different perspectives, whether it's a fan, whether it's a sports networker, and
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting stuff, and those will definitely still be coming at you.
Yeah, and you've mentioned it a lot that these are all the people that we've talked to so far as guests on the podcast are coming from different aspects of the industry, right? So that gives us more of a wider perspective of covering the Jays. And, just for us, what a crazy ride it's been, right? Just the last couple of months, starting this right before the playoffs. We don't know who's to come in January and February going to spring training. We'll leave that a surprise, but it's been so amazing to watch this team, to cover this team in the short period that we have. We can only imagine what 2026 will hold. Not only our favorite baseball team, but just our favorite sport team. To think that we get to cover it and talk about it on here. And for all of you that are listening, thank you so much. And we love you all. And we can't wait to see where this takes us in 2026.
Yes, we thank all you guys. Thank you all for listening. Yeah, we're looking forward to this, and go Jays.
Go Jays. See you in the new year.